Hey everyone, Parthy here from Letter Drop. Welcome back to our podcast. Today we have Oliver Johnson. He's a BDR at ServiceBell, company that we're friendly with at Letter Drop. Love the folks over there like Evan and Co. And I see Evan and Oliver on LinkedIn all the time, and they're producing a lot of great content. I can't say I would have heard of ServiceBell if I had not found them via Evan and Oliver online, just to show you like how you actually discover these kinds of companies. And yeah, Oliver recently has been truly popping off on LinkedIn. I see him pretty much every day in my feed, sharing lots of really great stories of how he's thinking about outbound and prospecting, which is also very much in line with not just his job and what he does, but also with what they sell at Service Bell. And I reached out to him to join us on the podcast today just because I think pretty much every BDR, full cycle AE founder, anybody who's prospecting should probably take a page out of Oliver's book and learn a little bit from him in terms of how you too can start social selling. So with that, Oliver, I'll turn it to you and maybe you can give us a little intro about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks again, Parthy, for having me on here. Super excited, and yeah, it's funny. I really started posting content on LinkedIn probably around 3 months or so ago, and I just decided one day, okay, I'm gonna take this seriously as like an A/B test for 1 month, and to be able to be on this right now and see what I'm doing is actually working is super cool. But a little bit about me: I started in sales in 2020. I've been at multiple different places. I sold timeshare before when I first started, so B2C there, and then flipped into the BDR role in 2020, and I've just been absolutely loving it and helping businesses grow and all that sort of thing. But yeah, I got here at Service Bell, and I was just consuming tons of different content on LinkedIn, trying to really hone my own skills. People like Mike Yardo and Hunter Deskin, some of those people that are doing, similar activities as I am, were super helpful to me. And being at Service Bell as well, too, our ICP is to sell to, SaaS companies that are sales leaders. So I figured, it would be a great place to be able to share, what's working for me, strategies and that sort of thing. And hopefully it would land in front of sales leaders that would also be able to take some tips and help their own BDR team.
Yeah, and props to you. It's clearly working, and so I think that was a really good decision on your part. In many ways, it's like it's not necessarily like traditional marketing through which I've heard of Service Bell. It's really through personal profiles, people who I thought were interesting, like yourself and Evan sharing great information that's valuable to other people in sales. That really got us hooked because at the end of the day, like everybody out there is looking to do their job better. They're looking to learn from other people. And so if you can be a person who's sharing information and doing it thoughtfully, everybody wants to learn from you in a way that a brand can't simply do, right? Like there is Oliver, the person who I can learn from, and then there's Service Bell, the corporate brand, which is great, but it's just a little bit different in terms of me wanting to follow them and learn from them actively every day. So I think what you did is really smart, and it is clearly paying off. Walk me through a day in your life right now. Like truly, like what is the day? What do you do every day? How much of that is dedicated towards trying to think about content, posting, prospecting on LinkedIn, cold calling, emailing? Like, what is your day? How do you break up your day? How do you segment your day? And how do you make time for this, right? Because everybody wants to be more like you, but they can't figure out how to actually make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, start off the day, and it's always for me. I like to start off with somewhat easy tasks for myself. So I built a super highly targeted list based off of people that have actually engaged with my posts, people that I know. Again, me selling, I sell with Service Bell, a dialer and a way for people to engage with inbound leads that are on their website. So people that have an SDR team, that sort of thing. So very targeted list. and I make cold calls. I mean, for hours and hours a day. I'm very much of the mindset that cold calling is not dead, and it is the best way to book meetings by far. So a lot of my hours of the day are spent cold calling. I love it, but then I always make it like my last activity for the day. So I break off about an hour and a half or so to be able to schedule and create content for the next 2 days. And really, where I find time for all of this, when I first started, I thought it was going to be extremely hard to be able to figure out what to post every day. But as I've just been learning more, things about sales and having more success with myself, it's basically just my own personal experiences that I'm sharing. So I now keep a tab on my phone, on my notes app on my phone, and anytime I have any sort of idea, I just write down a brief bullet point of like what that idea is. Funnily enough, these ideas always seem to come to me at like 3 a.m. In the middle of the night, and so my wife, she'll see me on my phone typing in my notes a content post idea for LinkedIn. But yeah, really just throughout all of the day, I'm just trying to constantly keep top of mind strategies that have worked for me, and just write those down and be able to put it in a way that is helpful for other BDRs to be able to digest.
And so you told me a little bit more about how you're sort of like getting these ideas. I think some pushback I see from a lot of people who maybe want to get started on this. A lot of people say that, hey, I'm not, and in your case, you're working in sales, and so it kind of makes sense that maybe it's easier for you to get ideas than other people, right?
Yeah.
And so some pushback I'll see is people feel shy to post or share information because they say, hey, I'm not an industry expert at what I'm selling. So let's say you're a BDR, you're selling into like banks, and you're talking about like fintech or something along those lines, or you're selling cybersecurity, CIOs or CISOs or something along those lines. I can see how it can be intimidating to be like, okay, I'm going to come up with some content or some ideas that are going to be helpful to a CISO or to somebody of that stature. And I guess at least my take on that, or what I've observed, is look, like you're cold calling, you're getting on discovery calls all the time. You are learning from the best of the best. And so even if you don't necessarily have that experience yourself, you can just tell stories from the people you're talking to and learning from. Because instead, you're essentially becoming a conduit of stories from all of the, call it like CIOs you're talking about, taking their stories, saying like, hey, Bob, like I heard you have this problem. Tell me a little bit more about your life. They tell you about their priorities. And that's actually a story that you can now turn into content. And I'm sure other CIOs out there are just like, you know what, Oliver's right. Like, I'm surprised he knew that, but he's right in terms of what he's talking about. And that's because you're just telling somebody else's story. And so, yeah, I know it's a little bit different for you at Service Bell because in terms of ideas, but do you feel like that seems right if you were to give advice to a fellow BDR in terms of where they can get content ideas from and to not feel shy about posting stuff, even if they're not experts?
Yeah, it's funny. So before Service Bell, I actually worked at a software development consultancy, and I had that exact same struggle to where I was like, okay, how do I make content that is going to resonate with the director of engineering or a CTO or that sort of thing? But luckily, I worked at a company that's called Dev Method, and they're real pros there, and the team there was super helpful. But for me, what was I think great was I could just ask people. There was people on my team that want to obviously get Dev Methods or whatever company is out there name a little bit more. So being able to just ask them, hey, I want to write some content that would resonate with an engineer like yourself. What are some ideas that you have that would be topics that are interesting to you guys? Or I think really just using the people on your team that are doing that exact job to just in a way interview them and say what would resonate with you is a really helpful thing. But yeah, I think it's all about just trying it, seeing what works, and worst case scenario, nobody sees the post, so there's no hurt in trying it out for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And just for context, my background's in software engineering and product management, and now I sell go-to-market software to sales and marketing leaders. So I'm not an expert. I've never been a VP of sales. I've never been a VP of marketing. But from 2 years of running this company and talking to thousands, truly thousands of people at this point in time. You pick up a thing or two,
Yeah.
and you really just tell people what you learn from them. Another thing you mentioned was you talked about cold calling, and I agree, cold calling is very much not dead. Though, like, things are changing, obviously, like office phones versus personal phones, and younger generation's proclivity to picking up phones and a whole bunch of stuff, but by far still like an amazing channel. Do you feel like the social selling that you are doing online on LinkedIn, or posting, have you seen that come back to impact your cold calling? Do people ever pick up the phone and be like, "Oh yeah, I've seen you before," or "I've heard of you guys before"? Has that ever happened to you?
About a month after I started posting consistently, and I had one person that said, "Oh, dude, I've been seeing your stuff, come up on my feed all the time." And that was, I think, the moment where I was like, "Okay, you know what? We got to stick with this," because it made it such a warmer conversation when the person that you're calling, has seen your face before from your profile picture, sees your various different takes on ideas, and it just made the conversation flow so much better. So, absolutely thing as well too. I love to actually just call people that I've seen that have engaged with some of my posts as well too, and at that point, it's a pretty sure thing that they'll somewhat recognize you from the content that you put out there. So absolutely, it's been helpful in every single aspect of my sales career here.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think, oh yeah, they get very fixated on the channel. So they're like, oh yeah, if you post on LinkedIn, the only way that's going to help you is if you like DM somebody on LinkedIn. And to be fair, I feel like that's where you're going to see the biggest results.
Yeah.
But you are still a person who exists everywhere. And so if you're going to email them, they're going to see Oliver Johnson in their inbox, and they're going to be like, I know Oliver. If you cold call them and say, hey, it's Oliver from Service Bell, you're going to be like, I know Oliver from Service Bell. It's not going to be an immediate screw you, hang up, and stick it up your ass, and I'm going to hang up. It's more so like, hey, Oliver, like, sure, like, I know you, I know who you are, I know what you're about. Um, you're not somebody sleazy trying to sell me something. I think of you as someone I can trust, as somebody who's like a business consultant who knows their stuff around this topic area. I'm open to actually having a conversation with you. And I think this is honestly how a lot of the sort of like BDR role and generally like outbound has to change. Like we need to really think about like human to human relationships, because it's getting easier than ever to just like spin up like AI automated stuff. And what's going to cut through is actually building that kind of relationship with your buyers, so that you can actually eventually have a conversation with them, and then see if you can help them. So I love that. I love to hear the sort of tangential benefits. Um, have you noticed like an improvement in your like reply rate on like email or LinkedIn DMs or anything like that? Or even when you send a blank connection request to somebody, like have you seen an uptick in people's willingness to connect with you since you've started being active on LinkedIn?
Oh, 100%. I made a post about that, I think last month as well too, about I A/B tested for a week, and I think my reply rate was at like 65% or something from just totally cold DMs that I was sending on LinkedIn. And before that, reply rate was 10%. I will say as well too, my pitch has gotten much better, so maybe that also has something to do with it as well. But it's almost like when you start to post consistently on LinkedIn that you're giving people a small reminder to actually, respond back to you. It's like every time you come up on their feed, they're like, "Oh, that guy's in my inbox right now, waiting for a response." And so the more you post, the more they see your face, the more that they want to reply. The way I put it as well too is it's like you don't want to leave people on red or not reply to people and with LinkedIn you're being able to build familiarity with people and actually get to know them, and so they want to give you that same courtesy of replying back to you and giving their thoughts. So it has had absolutely an enormous increase in my reply rate on all channels, but especially LinkedIn DM.
65% is truly insane. Like I like our BDR Ryan, he saw an improvement in his reply rate too. Like also like he did, it's not just social selling, he did a whole bunch of other stuff. He's been using like voice notes and videos and a whole bunch of other stuff to cut through the noise as well. But yeah, his reply rate went from around 5% to 21%, but 65% is insane. So like
That was
props to
one
you
given
on
week as well too, but it was that was a great week.
that. Okay, okay. No, that's insane to hear. And talk to me a little bit more about like personal benefits as well. So I imagine, sure, like let's talk about tangible benefits, right? So I'm assuming like you are finding it easier to hit quota or exceed quota given this activity, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so that's the personal quota stuff. I imagine it's improving your brand as well, and it's also going to help you with your career at Service Bell and beyond, looking way into the future as well. I'm guessing that's probably true for you from doing this, and everybody should maybe think about this as well.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, it helps, with just connecting with tons of different, sales leaders. Sales leaders, but I would say the biggest benefit as well is just how much I have learned about, just what's working and what's not working. Because every post I try to, give some sort of helpful advice that I think would have helped me as a BDR or something that I would find helpful coming from someone else. But every post I get tons and tons of comments of people that say, here, this strategy is working for me, or this strategy didn't work for me because of X reason. So I mean, just honestly, for the personal growth that I'm getting out of this, and being able to connect with so many professionals and people that are way smarter than I am, has been awesome for my trajectory here, and just in becoming a better salesperson, which is the end goal in all of this.
Yeah, I think not just for like you're hitting your like tangible goals in terms of quota and whatnot, but also becoming like a better salesperson, building your brand for your entire career. Like there are all these tangential benefits. I started posting regularly on LinkedIn largely because I had to as a founder for my business. But honestly, the number of cool people I've got to meet, the number of partnerships we've been able to build,
Yeah.
number of just like friends in industry I've been able to make where there's not maybe near tangible business value, but I'm just like, hey, like these are circles of people I don't think I would have interacted with before, is really hard to kind of like quantify on that side as well. How would you how have you communicated this to your team? And I know you guys are you're an early stage startup like us, and so people are probably really open minded and love experimentation and all this kind of stuff. How have you communicated what you do to your boss, your manager, to the rest of your team, and why what you do is valuable? Have you encouraged other people at the company to do this? I know Evan's always been doing this, but have you tried to encourage more people at the company to do this?
Oh yeah, no, I will say I totally copied Evan. He's our head of marketing there, and he's one of the smartest people ever. And so I saw his posts. I saw they were getting tons and tons of comments from people that were within our ICP, and I just saw that post and thought, what a smart idea. I feel like I could do something similar as well too. Just giving, I mean, he was giving tips to help other marketing people, and so I thought I could do the same thing for salespeople. So yeah, I think my whole team, we actually have a channel in our Slack as well that says like my LinkedIn post as well, and so there's it's very much encouraged within all of our team members here to post consistently on LinkedIn. But yeah, I've been encouraging all of our other AEs and everything here that this is the way to do it, and this is what's getting more people's eyes on Service Bell, and so that's the main goal with all of this as well.
What do you think is stopping them from doing it? Because you just proved that you can do it. Like get started, a couple months later, you're off to the races. What do you think is stopping other people from doing it?
Oh, I will say I've seen their calendars, some of our AE's calendars, and it is back to back to back to back to back with calls. So I think always the biggest thing is just time. It does take some time in the beginning as well too, and I think even for me when I first started it, you know, writing a post took me a couple hours just because I was like really trying to think about what I wanted to say. How do I say this effectively? But I think once you get past those initial couple of posts, and you start to see people are liking what you're writing, and commenting, that sort of thing, it gets easier, and you don't put so much weight on each individual post. It's all about just staying consistent, and if you consistently put content out there that is resonating with people, then you're going to grow your account just secondhand.
Yep. And if you were to give advice to another BDR, full cycle AE, anybody really who's doing any sort of outbound, about the value of this, how would you like what would you say? Like how should it go about explaining to their boss why this is valuable? Or if let's say you were even speaking to like a sales manager and they wanted to do this or they wanted to figure out how do I make time for this, but then they're thinking about the opportunity cost. They're saying like, oh, how many fewer calls does my team need to make in order to make space for this? How many fewer emails are they going to send to make time for this? How do you have that conversation with them and convince them like, hey, this is actually a valuable use of my time and the ROI is greater than me making that incremental like one or two more calls a day?
Would just say that I think with the way that this industry is going, it's going to pay off if you have a personal brand, and I think that it's just getting harder and harder to cut through the noise right now, and people's inboxes are just filled with cold emails that they're getting, and nobody's replying to them, or they're getting hit up, you know, with 100 calls a day from other sales reps, and so the only way that you're going to be able to cut through that noise is by being able to be authentic with people and build a personal relationship. And I think LinkedIn is just, really the best way to do that, to build a personal relationship. So I would just say, you know, it's for me and myself. I mean, I've proven that it's worked. The amount of inbound leads that I've got that have came in, the amount of knowledge that I've gotten, the amount of people that I've connected with that maybe they're not even ready at this moment to buy or anything, but in the future we're going to be the first person that they think of when they are evaluating. So I think those are just the three things there that would make it, how to express just how valuable this is and why this is definitely something that should be prioritized within your sales strategy and sales motion.
I agree. I think there was a case study or there's a study from Winter where they talked about how people actually purchase. And most people, when they have a problem, in their mind, they have that problem mapped to a company. And so you always want to be that first company that they think about when they have that problem. And so, Oliver, in many ways, you're doing God's work by just talking about the problems that Service Bell solves for a lot of people. So when all those people liking your posts, all commenting on your posts, and the many, many, many more thousands of impressions, we don't know who they are. They're seeing that kind of stuff, but when they have a problem, maybe it's not today, but when they have a problem um, and they're thinking to themselves like, where have I heard of this before, or where have I seen this before? They might be thinking back to your post, or this thing I learned from Oliver, and I think it's going to probably be their first instinct to be like, I should go ask Oliver, or maybe just like go to their website directly because Oliver's kind of like built that brand recognition around that problem for the
I
company.
think I think as well too. It's interesting that you say that because the people that have actually messaged me saying they're interested in our product or whatever, it's always the people that have never previously liked a post of mine before. So what is that out of all those impressions that you're getting, maybe they're not liking, maybe they're not commenting, but they're seeing it, and it's top of mind for them. And once they are actually in a position where hey, we want to start evaluating dialers or things that'll help us to generate more inbound. I am going to be the first person they talk to, even if they haven't engaged with me previously.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Well, I really love what you've done. And like I said, like I reached out to you because I saw you on LinkedIn. Like here you are on our podcast because I saw you on LinkedIn. I had no prior connection to you. I mean, I've seen Evan on LinkedIn before, but no prior connection to you. I just reached out because I saw you on LinkedIn. So you're getting podcast invites now from your LinkedIn fame, which is great. I'm sure it's driving a lot of business value for Service Bell as well. And honestly, that's what we're trying to do at LinkedIn, at Letter Drop on LinkedIn. Like I practice this. Our Zach, who runs our sales team, Ryan, our founding BDR, he practices this. We even get our CS team to do this as well. We've seen companies want to upsell or like get upsold rather and expand. because they didn't know about features that we had that our CSM was talking about. So honestly, like there is no downside to really talking about these kinds of problems and stuff on LinkedIn. But thank you so much for joining us today. Really enjoyed learning a little bit more about how you've been thinking about um, LinkedIn and social selling and being active online there, and how that's positively impacted you. And hopefully, the BDRs, sales managers, AEs, founders, VPs of sales, whoever's listening to this, even demand gen managers on the marketing side, they took away something and they go back to their team and they say like, hey, I think you guys should be a little bit more like Oliver and point them to this podcast. If people want to find you online, I know the answer is LinkedIn, but anything else you'd want to throw out to the audience that's listening today in terms of how they can reach out to you if they're listening today and want to get in contact?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn obviously is the best place there, but my email is oliver@servicebell.com. Super simple as well. But yeah, just last piece of advice here. I would just say if anybody is considering, BDR, anybody considering posting on LinkedIn, today's the day to do it. Just get that first post out there, and consistently just be curating ideas of things that are working for you. I think authenticity is something that people can sniff out a mile away. So be authentic, be you, and you're going to start to see growth from that. So yeah, thanks so much, Parthy. I really appreciate being on here.
Amazing. No, thank you. The pleasure's mine.
Awesome.